What's going on, guys? My name is Jeff and this is Mad Hatter's Reef, and today we're going to be talking about rapid tissue necrosis. What's going on, guys? My name is Jeff and this is Mad Hatter's Reef, and if this is your first time being here, this is where I take a look at everything reef tank related. So if you love reef tanks like I do, gently press that subscribe button in the face. Today we're going to be taking a look at rapid tissue necrosis as well as RTN, but before we jump into that, we're going to announce the winner of the $25 gift certificate from last week's video. And this week's winner is Heidi's Fish Tank. Heidi wrote, "I'm having a hard time deciding between a shallow or bare bottom for my 125 build. I had crushed coral in my 55 and I hated it." Heidi, you have won yourself a $25 gift certificate to Premium Aquatics. I hope that helps you out with your new build, and thank you for being a subscriber of Mad Hatter's Reef. Alright, guys, so we have a kind of crappy video to make today. I have been battling rapid tissue necrosis for about 2 months now, and I have lost about 2/3 of the coral that I have put into the 220-gallon build. Now, for those of you that don't know what rapid tissue necrosis is, basically it's a very rapid death of the coral, and it's often seen as a little bit of bleaching at the base of the coral, and then pretty much overnight or even throughout the day, the flesh just tears away from the coral. It's a very horrible thing to happen, but nobody really knows what the root cause of this is. A lot of people have educated guesses and their thoughts as to what causes rapid tissue necrosis, but when it comes down to it, nobody really knows. So basically what was happening in my tank is I had quite a few frags as well as quite a few maricultured corals in the tank, and my maricultured corals were basically small colonies of SPS corals. I think I had some montiporas as well as some acroporas in the tank. Around the same time that I put the last maricultured coral in the tank, I added a yellow clown goby, and he found himself a home in one of the maricultured corals, and everything looked really good. And I was at a point where I was seeing some substantial growth in my corals and was very happy with what was going on in the tank. And I noticed one day a little bit of white at the bottom of one of the maricultured corals. Thought it might have been some shading. Day came to an end, lights turned off on the tank, went to bed, got up the next morning, lights turned on, and that coral was completely bleached out. At the time, I was upset about it, but I didn't really think much about it. I was, alright, you know, I guess everything that everybody says about maricultured corals is true. They're very finicky. The success rate isn't there. They're not adapted to aquarium life. Not long after that coral died, I left it in the tank because the yellow clown goby stayed in that coral for the most part. When I fed him, he'd come up to the top and then he'd go back into that coral and hang out for most of the day. A week or so goes by, and then he started hanging out in the other maricultured coral. At that point, I started taking a look at my water chemistry. I started testing for everything, and for the most part, everything was where it should be. So I was really having a hard time understanding what was actually happening in the tank. Not long after, the yellow clown goby went to another maricultured coral, and again, bleaching at the bottom, again overnight or within a couple hours, it stripped all its flesh off. And that was my most favorite one that I had. It was an absolutely beautiful lime green colony, very thick branches, and at that point I'm looking on the internet, I'm trying to research stuff, trying to figure out what's going on. There's some things that you can do to battle rapid tissue necrosis. You can dip the coral, you can frag the coral, you also can take super glue and kind of go around the edge of where the bleaching or the recession of flesh is happening to kind of prevent it from continuing up the coral frag. And when you have a large colony, you have a better shot of catching it and stopping it than you do if it's a small frag. And at that point, with the exception of my digitata colonies that I had lost pretty much all my large colonies. The yellow clown goby made its way, the Montipora digitata colonies, and noticed the same thing. At that point, I cut up both the digitata colonies, trying to prevent this from happening. I had them placed throughout the tank at all different levels and continued to lose coral. It was a very frustrating time. It was a very disappointing time, and it was hard for me to really sit down and be objective and capture it with my camera, and I wish I did at this point, so I can share it with you guys, so I can help educate or even help prevent somebody else from dealing with this. But I just didn't have it in me. It was very, very disappointing. So at this point, I pretty much had lost all of my maricultured corals, and really the only thing that was surviving was my aquacultured corals, and which were, to be honest, some of my favorite. So at that time, I was starting to remove the dead colonies from the tank, and what that basically did was force the yellow clown goby to start hosting in the frags. And there wasn't even a shot at preventing the spread of the rapid tissue necrosis when it came to the frags. Pretty much lost all but one of my SPS corals that I have added in the tank in the last year. I knew that it wasn't a water quality issue, and I basically was dealing with a bacterial issue in the tank, and one by one the yellow clown goby, in my opinion, it may not be that, but my best educated guess is that this yellow clown goby was going from coral to coral, spreading the bacteria throughout the tank. What I'm left with at this point is one SPS coral, which is a Porcellopora. I have a Leptoceras, a green Leptoceras that's barely hanging on, and the rest of it is LPS and softies that are still alive in the tank. And during this time, I was doing a lot of research, a lot of reading about rapid tissue necrosis, and I came across an article written by Reef Builders, which was sharing a time where Sanjay Yoshi was dealing with it in his very well-known established reef tank. And having a colony of coral that you've had for years and just watching it die overnight, I can't even imagine. And this was something that Sanjay was battling for a very long time, but I did find a little bit of hope in that article, because it kind of, let me know that this isn't something that comes from poor husbandry. It's something that just happens. It doesn't really take away the sting of, losing coral, but it does help find a little bit of hope for not being completely run over. So my hopes in sharing this with you guys is, one, that you're not alone if you're battling rapid tissue necrosis. It happens to some of the most well-known hobbyists out there, like Sanjay Yoshi, and it happens to people that have been in this hobby for years. This is the first time that I've ever dealt with it, and I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't want this to be a poster child for everything that's wrong with reef keeping, and just continues the the BS of it's impossible to keep a reef tank, because it isn't impossible. It's very possible, but things do happen that create bumps in the road. My hopes for the tank at this point in time is to kind of find a point where this is going to stop. It's been very quiet in the tank for a couple of weeks now, so I think that it may have stopped, and even some of the corals that have been struggling are starting to make a little bit of rebound. That Leptoceras is coming back a little bit, and that Porcellopora is still hanging on, so there is some hope in the tank. Right now it's basically minus the LPS and a couple of softies that are in there, efficiently with live rock. And I really hope that I can kind of slowly but surely start adding some corals back in there. Probably about a month or two, I might go out and buy a coral, put it in the tank, and just see what happens. But at this point in time, I'm not doing any huge worldwide coral orders. That's where I'm at right now, and I wanted to share this with you guys in hopes to, one, help educate people about rapid tissue necrosis, or RTN. Just share with you guys, that I don't know everything. I never pretended to know everything, and things happen to me just as much as they do the next guy, and it's a battle. It's what you do when things don't go the way that you expect them to, or the way that in which you hope them to, that defines you as a hobbyist. And learning from your mistakes can help you become a more successful hobbyist down the road. What I would like to have happen at this point, and it's going to be for the $25 gift certificate for next week. For those of you that have had battles with rapid tissue necrosis, leave a comment down below if you overcame it or what you did to get past it. If you fragged your corals and that worked for you, if you started dipping your corals, that worked for you, how did you overcome rapid tissue necrosis? Leave a comment down below, because I feel that over time that people that are battling this are going to land on this video, and if there's something that they can gain from reading the comments by sitting there watching this video, I think that would be the best way to make lemonade out of lemons. That's going to do it for today, guys. I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for your support, and I will see you next time right here with a brand new video.